Welcome to the glossy, magazine-ready world of the silent patient, where Alicia Berenson, painter, national treasure, and overall aesthetic queen, lives a life so perfect it makes Pinterest look sloppy. She's married to Gabriel Berenson, a handsome, successful photographer who radiates "I moisturize and pay my taxes" energy. Their home is a minimalist paradise, a place where even dust particles feel too intimidated to appear. Together, they form the kind of aspirational couple who inspire envy, admiration, and possibly a few irrational inferiority complexes in strangers. Before we continue with the story, making our videos takes plenty of caffeine, chaos, and too many snacks, but we love every moment of it. If you enjoy our unhinged humor and dramatic recaps, please like, subscribe, and comment. It helps us keep creating more ridiculous, story-driven chaos and tells YouTube we exist. Stick around, join the madness, and help this little corner of the internet grow. Now, back to the story! One fateful evening, Gabriel returns from a glamorous photo shoot, all cheekbones and fashion lighting, and walks right into a scene no amount of therapy could prepare him for. Instead of a loving welcome, he finds Alicia clutching a gun like she's auditioning for a gritty reboot of her own life. Minutes later, Gabriel is dead, tied to a chair, shot in the face, and Alicia is discovered nearby, bloodied and silent with a self-inflicted wrist wound. She sits there in an eerie, detached calm, like she has reached a state of existential enlightenment only monks and murder suspects achieve. And then, in the most dramatic career pivot ever recorded, Alicia stops talking. Not a whisper, not a syllable. Her silence becomes her brand, her persona, her form of world-class performance art. Her only explanation comes in the form of a painting, a self-portrait titled Alcestis, named after a tragic Greek heroine. Subtle? Not even remotely. Symbolic? Absolutely. Confusing for everyone except Alicia. The media loses its collective mind. A silent painter who may or may not have murdered her perfect husband? That's the kind of clickbait that practically writes itself. Everyone wants answers. Journalists, critics, armchair psychologists. But Alicia gives them the social equivalent of a hard block. Nothing. Courts aren't amused by her artistic silence and ship her off to the Grove, a psychiatric facility that looks like a blend of neglected government funding and forced mindfulness. Enter Theo Faber, a psychotherapist who reads Alicia's case and immediately decides he is destined, ordained, really, to help her. Why? Because his ego demands a challenge. Theo manipulates his career path to land a job at the Grove purely for the opportunity to save Alicia. It's the therapeutic equivalent of moving cities for someone who doesn't know you exist. The funny thing is, Theo believes this is noble. He paints himself as the empathetic hero of a Greek epic, ready to slay emotional demons and unlock Alicia's voice like she's a psychological escape room. Meanwhile, everyone around him wonders if he understands how therapy is supposed to work. Spoiler, he does not. Still, Theo arrives at the Grove with hope, determination, and the kind of confidence only a man who hasn't yet confronted his trauma could possess. He introduces himself to the team, strides into Alicia's treatment plan, and prepares for the breakthrough of the century. What he actually finds is a silent woman staring through him, a facility on the brink of chaos, and a mystery far more complicated than he expected. But for now, all he sees is potential. Delusional, reckless, obsessive potential. And thus the stage is set: a mute artist, a murdered husband, a therapist with a savior complex, and a painting that screams louder than Alicia ever will. Theo arrives at the Grove ready to spark healing, transformation, and probably a TED Talk about trauma bonding. Instead, he finds a psychiatric facility that's structurally held together by budget cuts, lukewarm coffee, and sheer stubbornness. The staff rotates between exhaustion and emotional detachment, and no one is particularly optimistic about Alicia getting better, mostly because Alicia still refuses to acknowledge the existence of spoken language. Theo, however, sees this as a golden opportunity to demonstrate his unique therapeutic gifts. He sits across from Alicia during their first session, armed with empathy and rehearsed lines. Alicia stares at him with the blank intensity of a museum statue, silently judging humanity. Theo pours out compassion, insight, and sincerity. Alicia responds with silence. Stunning, oppressive silence. The kind of silence that deserves its own character credit. Outside the therapy room, Theo begins snooping around Alicia's past because what is proper psychiatric practice if not freelance detective work? His first stop is Jean-Philippe, her gallery owner, who speaks about Alicia with religious devotion as though she painted the Sistine Chapel using only emotional depth and sheer genius. He offers flowery praise but zero tangible clues. Theo nods politely while mentally cataloging everything. Not because it's helpful, but because he's determined to build a conspiracy board, even if the conspiracy doesn't exist. Next, Theo visits Paul, Alicia's strange and chronically stressed cousin, who lives in a decaying family home filled with resentment, dust, and multi-generational trauma. Paul reveals fragmented memories of Alicia's difficult childhood, an alcoholic mother, a cold father, and enough emotional neglect to fill several therapy textbooks. Theo siphons every detail like a man desperate for narrative coherence. Meanwhile, tensions rise at the Grove. Staff members bicker, budgets shrink, and patients become more unpredictable by the day. Christian, another therapist, radiates distrust and seems personally offended by Theo's interest in Alicia. Every conversation with him feels like a duel fought with passive-aggressive commentary. Then comes the moment every therapist secretly dreads. Alicia attacks Theo during a session. She leaps forward and scratches his face, a violent burst from someone previously committed to absolute stillness. Rational therapists would interpret this as danger. Theo interprets it as meaningful engagement and mentally checks the box labeled breakthrough. Alicia then gifts him a drawing, a haunting image of herself with her mouth sewn shut. It's unsettling, disturbing, and not at all subtle. Theo naturally chooses to view it as a message of trust rather than the universal sign for go away. As the chaos around him intensifies, Theo's obsession grows roots. His colleagues suspect he's becoming too attached, and they are absolutely right. But Theo insists he's the one who will save Alicia, even if she clearly doesn't want to be saved. Little does he know, he's not rescuing her. He's circling her story like a moth around a flame he started himself. Just when Theo starts fearing Alicia might never give him anything but aggressive silence and disturbing sketches, she hands him a miracle. Her diary. The same diary she hid from police, family, and anyone with a badge or pulse. And she gives it to Theo without explanation, because obviously, verbal communication is beneath her. For Theo, reading the diary is practically a religious experience. He opens it as if he's about to uncover sacred truth rather than someone else's private mental spiral. The entries detail Alicia's final weeks before Gabriel's murder, a time filled with paranoia, dread, and the haunting belief that she was being watched. She describes a masked man lurking outside her house, following her, breaking in. Theo, who desperately wants to believe in the masked man theory, takes every word as gospel. Instead of questioning whether Alicia's mental health might have been deteriorating, he assumes she was living inside a live-action thriller. Because why consider psychological complexity when a dramatic explanation is available? In the midst of this, a new twist surfaces. Christian, Theo's colleague, had treated Alicia years before Gabriel's death, a fact he conveniently forgot to mention. Christian becomes tense, defensive, and aggressive, like a man who knows the plot is catching up with him. Theo immediately suspects a cover-up. Christian suspects Theo is out of control. Both are correct. Meanwhile, Theo completely neglects the implosion of his own marriage. He discovers his wife Kathy is cheating on him, but instead of confronting her, he stalks her lover like a bargain bin detective. He breaks into the man's home, rifles through his belongings, and then goes to work acting like nothing happened. Theo insists this personal crisis doesn't affect his judgment. Spoiler, it affects every single decision he makes. As Theo goes deeper into Alicia's emotional world, he becomes fixated on the moments where her trauma collides with her reality. The diary entries intensify, her fear becomes palpable, and the masked man's presence grows more ominous. Theo believes he's slowly decoding her psyche. Finally, the breakthrough everyone's been waiting for happens. In a trembling whisper, Alicia finally speaks. "He was going to kill me!" Theo is stunned. He sits there soaking in the moment, believing Alicia has finally opened the door to her truth. But in reality, she has only opened the door to Theo's downfall. After months of silence that could rival a monastery, Alicia begins to unravel the truth of that terrible night. She claims a masked man invaded their home, tied her and Gabriel up, and forced Gabriel to choose whether he would die for her. The moment hangs heavy, mythic, dramatic, and utterly devastating, and Gabriel's answer, or lack of one, is what destroys her. He said nothing. No sacrifice, no declaration of love, just silence. The exact same silence Alicia adopts afterward, as if echoing the emotional void he left her in. Theo listens, horrified and captivated, but something gnaws at him. Alicia's story feels symbolic, like trauma twisted into myth. Still, he clings to it because it fits his narrative. Alicia is a misunderstood victim, and he is her enlightened savior. The problem? Theo's life is falling apart faster than the Grove's hallway lighting. His wife's affair haunts him. He stalks her lover. He spends more time hiding in bushes than doing actual therapy. Theo insists none of this compromises his objectivity. Meanwhile, readers everywhere scream, "Yes, it does!" Back at the Grove, tensions rise. Christian grows more suspicious. Staff members gossip about Theo's obsession. Even Diomedes, who normally views life as a Greek tragedy, begins questioning whether Theo might be starring in one of his own. Then, Alicia paints a new piece, one that changes everything. The painting is a tribute to the truth she has carried for years. A truth so sharp it slices through Theo's illusions in one stroke. The painting is of the masked man, and the masked man is unmistakably Theo. Theo tries to rationalize it. Maybe she's confused, maybe it's symbolic, maybe she saw his face somewhere and mixed it up. He spirals into denial faster than a man pelted with hard facts. But deep down, Theo knows. Alicia remembers him. She remembers everything. Here we are at the grand finale, the moment readers either gasp out loud, drop the book, or stare into the void wondering how they missed the most important clues. Because The Silent Patient isn't just a thriller, it's a psychological booby trap disguised as literature. And Section 5 is where every tripwire snaps at once. Alicia's final painting, the one she works on after months of dead silence and emotional shutdown, is the match that lights the entire truth on fire. It's a portrait of the masked intruder from the night Gabriel died, but the face beneath the mask isn't Gabriel, or some random stalkers, or even a figment of her imagination. It's Theo, crystal clear, unmistakable. No room for interpretation, debate, or therapeutic excuses. Now let's break down this twist in the cleanest, clearest way possible. Theo was the damn intruder. Yes, the therapist who spent the entire book claiming he wanted to save Alicia was the one who terrorized her in the first place. The man who devoted hours to analyzing her trauma, digging through her past, and obsessing over her silence was the direct cause of her silence. It wasn't symbolic, it wasn't metaphorical, it wasn't psychological projection. Theo actually broke into the Berenson house. Here's what really happened that night, with all the clarity and dramatic sting it deserves. Theo, devastated and unraveling after discovering his wife Kathy's affair, spirals into a rage-filled emotional blackout. Instead of seeking therapy like a normal human being, he decides to stalk the man Kathy is cheating with. That man happens to live in the same neighborhood as Alicia and Gabriel. Theo sees Gabriel with Alicia. Theo follows them. Theo stews. Theo breaks. So, he puts on a mask, arms himself, sneaks into their home, ties them both up, and forces Gabriel to answer the world's cruelest question. Would you die for her? And here's the core emotional bomb. Gabriel says nothing. Not yes. Not no. Not even a final dramatic monologue. He chooses himself. That silence hits Alicia like a bullet to the heart long before the actual gun does. She realizes her marriage was built on a lie, that the man she adored would let her die if it meant saving himself. Once Theo leaves, mission accomplished, ego soothed, absolutely no grasp on reality, Alicia is left shattered. She frees herself, discovers Gabriel still tied to the chair, and pulls the trigger herself. The shot that killed Gabriel wasn't rage. It was betrayal, despair, and the kind of emotional collapse that rewrites a person's entire identity. Theo returns to his normal life, pretending the entire incident never happened. He convinces himself he was merely a spectator of fate, not the author of trauma. He even manages to forget his own involvement, or repress it so deep he believes he's innocent. Until he meets Alicia again as her therapist, and she recognizes him instantly, but instead of exposing him, she shuts down completely. Silence becomes her shield, the only place where Theo can't reach her again. Her silence was never guilt, it was self-defense. Once Alicia paints him as the masked intruder, Theo panics, cornered, exposed, and because nothing screams ethical therapist like panicking and drugging your patient into unconsciousness, he injects her with medication to silence her one last time. But Alicia, clever as ever, uses her last conscious moments to write everything in her diary, her final weapon. Christian finds her unconscious. The diary is discovered. Diomedes reads the truth. The police are called. Theo attempts to walk away from his collapsing life as if casually leaving a dinner party early. He writes his own confession, cloaked in poetic excuses and tragic self-pity, but the police arrive moments later and arrest him. Game over. The savior becomes the monster. The therapist becomes the perpetrator. The silent patient becomes the storyteller. And Alicia, she doesn't need to speak anymore. Her truth screams without a single word. And that's the story. Betrayal, silence, therapy malpractice, and one extremely dramatic painting. If you enjoyed watching me unravel this psychological disaster so you don't have to read 300 pages yourself, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit that little bell. Because clearly you love drama, plot twists, and unhinged characters. And lucky you, I've got plenty more where this came from. Thanks for watching. And remember, trust your therapist, unless he shows up in a ski mask.